Viral buzz, gold nuggets found in Beijing River, drawing hundreds for prospecting. Toxic air? Surge in asthma patients in Hohot after heavy rain overwhelms hospitals. Outbreak of dengue fever in Yunnan, concealment of deaths by authorities. Tokyo uses Chinese voice system to respond harassment calls from China. Think tank, how to assist the Chinese people instead of the CCP regime. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Viral buzz, gold nuggets found in Beijing River, drawing hundreds for prospecting. In recent times, a video has been circulating on Chinese social media, capturing the sight of gold nuggets emerging in a dried riverbed at the entrance of a village in Beijing's Fangshan district. This has prompted a considerable number of people to gather and engage in the activity of panning for gold. According to a report by Singtao Daily, one of the individuals who filmed the video mentioned that, while driving home, they observed many people on the dry riverbed. These individuals stated that they were picking up gold. They said, "It's just small gold nuggets, and there were twice as many people as yesterday, they were all people." On September 3rd, a Beijing netizen even live-streamed from the local riverbed. He mentioned that the incident occurred in Nankanji village, Zhejiang town, Fangshan district, where some people had indeed found gold, and others had come from out of town in the early morning to pan for gold. There were hundreds of people, and the road was filled with parked cars. On September 3rd, the Beijing Municipal Public Security Bureau Fangshan branch issued an official statement, stating that after conducting an investigation, the Fangshan police found that a 26-year-old man named Wei had scattered brass particles in the riverbed on September 1st in the Zhejiang area to increase the popularity of his personal social media account. He also advertised buying gold by the river to attract nearby residents to pick them up. After videos of the scene were spread online, it garnered social attention. The police stated that Wei's actions seriously disrupted social order and had a negative impact, and that he is now the subject of a criminal investigation by the Fangshan police. The case is currently under further investigation. Toxic air? Surge in asthma patients in Hohot after heavy rain overwhelms hospitals. On September 2nd, in Hohot, Inner Mongolia, after a thunderstorm, there was a sudden surge in local patients with coughing and asthma, causing the hospitals to become overcrowded. Videos from local hospitals showed long lines at the asthma specialty outpatient department and crowded hospital lobbies, with the emergency room completely occupied. Staff at Inner Mongolia Medical University affiliated hospital's pediatric department confirmed that more than 800 people sought treatment at the hospital for this condition on the 2nd. According to the deputy director of the pediatric department at Inner Mongolia Maternal and Child Health Hospital, at around 8 p.m. on the 2nd, the pediatric emergency room received over 400 patients. Most of them were of school age or younger and showed symptoms such as breathing difficulties, shortness of breath, profuse sweating, and in severe cases, an inability to lie down or speak due to intense wheezing, putting their lives at risk. This required quick diagnosis and effective emergency treatment. Similarly, in various large hospitals in Hohot, many patients experienced coughing and difficulty breathing. Some netizens on Weibo expressed their distress, saying, "I can hardly breathe, it's really unbearable." This phenomenon wasn't limited to Inner Mongolia. Netizens mentioned that in Shaanxi, Beijing, Hebei, and Gansu, many people experienced symptoms such as rhinitis and swollen eyes. Some even claimed that their allergies had worsened after contracting new coronavirus. In response to this unusual situation, hospital staff explained that it was due to pollen allergies triggered by the thunderstorm, affecting people with asthma and rhinitis more severely. However, many Weibo users disagreed, asserting that it wasn't pollen allergies but rather an allergy to Artemisia pollen. According to mainland Chinese portal Sohu, the natural ecological conditions and climate in Hohot and its surrounding areas are well suited for the growth of plants in the Artemisia genus, such as mugwort. As reported by Xinhua in 2018, the Chinese authorities have taken advantage of the drought-resistant properties of mugwort by planting it extensively, often alongside trees and shrubs, as a measure to prevent sandstorms. The period from July to October each year marks the peak season for the maturation and dispersal of pollen from these artemisia plants. During this time, the climate is characterized by low humidity, minimal wind, and limited rainfall, creating conditions where pollen particles can easily float and accumulate in the air. When the concentration of pollen reaches a certain level, it can trigger allergic reactions. However, there is also a small number of internet users who suggest that this could be a case of thunderstorm asthma, a condition characterized by acute asthma attacks or worsening of asthma symptoms that occur during or shortly after thunderstorms, often during the pollen season. These events can lead to widespread outbreaks of asthma in specific regions, with symptoms varying from mild to severe, and in severe cases, they can be life-threatening. Some individuals jokingly said, "The air must be toxic," or another round of releasing toxins has started. Outbreak of dengue fever in Yunnan, concealment of deaths by authorities. In recent times, Yunnan province has experienced an outbreak of dengue fever, leading to overcrowded hospitals and even fatalities. However, local authorities have not released any official statements regarding this situation. In detail, a healthcare worker from the first hospital of Jinghong City in Zhishuangbana informed an Epoch Times reporter that they have been receiving 1 to 200 dengue fever patients daily, resulting in overcrowding at the hospital and a lack of available beds. The healthcare worker emphasized that dengue fever requires hospital treatment and can be more severe than the new coronavirus, with reported fatalities, including among young individuals. A resident of Zhishuangbana, Mr. Wang, also reported knowing individuals who have succumbed to the disease, including 2 elderly individuals and a child, one elderly person in their 60s and a child who was only 2 years old. He mentioned that many people in his vicinity have contracted the disease, including himself. Mr. Wang recounted his own experience, enduring a 2-week-long illness characterized by symptoms like fever, headaches, body aches, nausea, diarrhea, followed by the appearance of rashes all over his body, itching, and lingering complications. He described it as extremely uncomfortable and considered it more severe than a new coronavirus infection. Prior to August 30th, China's Central Broadcasting Network stated that the city of Mile in Yunnan conducted an extensive campaign to exterminate disease-carrying vectors over a period of 18 days, spanning from August 29th to September 15th. This operation covered an area of 30.7 square kilometers within the city's construction zone. However, the report did not specify the reasons for this extermination effort. Dengue fever is a viral illness transmitted to humans via mosquitoes and is commonly found in tropical and subtropical regions. While most infected individuals remain asymptomatic, those who develop symptoms typically experience high fever, headaches, body aches, nausea, and skin rashes. Most people recover within 1 to 2 weeks, but in some cases, it can progress to severe forms, which can be life-threatening. Dr. Lin Xiaoxu, an American virologist and former head of the virus department at the U.S. Army Research Institute, believes that dengue fever has displayed an unprecedented growth trend in countries like India, Malaysia, and Singapore this year. He also contends that the Chinese authorities have a long history of concealing epidemics and lack genuine data. Dr. Lin explained that the spread of dengue fever is related to mosquitoes but is also highly dependent on the local environment. Dengue fever is currently one of the major threats to global public health, with the most severe form being dengue hemorrhagic fever, which can lead to internal bleeding and is a very difficult condition to reverse. He further stated that since there is currently no suitable vaccine for dengue fever, there are no highly effective treatments or specific prevention strategies available at the moment. Tokyo uses Chinese voice system to respond harassment calls from China. As previously reported, after the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant began discharging treated water into the sea on August 24, reports suggest that various parts of Japan have received a significant number of suspected harassing phone calls believed to be originating from China, with the country code 86. Up to 30,000 suspected harassing phone calls were reported by the end of August. According to the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, to address this, starting from September 1, any calls received in Chinese will be automatically transferred to a Chinese voice system for handling. The automated voice system provides responses such as, "Did you know?" The discharge of treated water is conducted in accordance with international standards and practices, with full safety measures in place, and among China's nuclear power plants, some release approximately 10 times the amount of tritium as the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in a year. According to reports, during a 1.5-hour period from 4:45 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. on September 1, the automated voice system handled 198 calls. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government's response has received approval from many Japanese netizens. One netizen remarked, "When receiving calls with the prefix 86, it is generally assumed to be linked to the Chinese CCP authorities. Japan should consider filing a complaint with the World Trade Organization, WTO, or imposing stringent import and export regulations on China, CCP, in response. The international community should support Japan." Another Japanese netizen suggested that depending on the number of harassing calls received by the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, it could potentially qualify as a criminal case of obstructing business operations. They recommended seeking cooperation from the CCP government for criminal investigations and, if necessary, taking legal measures. Furthermore, some Japanese netizens expressed concerns that in the event of a crisis involving Taiwan, cross-strait conflict, Japan might face phone call attacks on a scale of thousands or tens of thousands. They proposed treating this situation as a rehearsal and urged the Japanese government to collaborate in developing contingency plans. The Japanese embassy in China, shifting from defense to offense. In the context where the Tokyo Metropolitan Government is using a Chinese voice system to respond to harassment calls from China, as mentioned above, the Japanese embassy in Beijing also has adopted a distinct approach. They are actively sharing precise information on platforms like Weibo, which is widely used by the Chinese population, in order to counter the CCP's baseless smear campaign. For instance, on August 30, the Japanese embassy's Weibo account cited Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, stating that the treated water discharged from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into the ocean does not contain any harmful substances and has no impact on the human body. They also provided charts illustrating tritium disposal data for various nuclear power plants, with a focus on highlighting the Fukushima plant's lower tritium release in comparison to several Chinese plants in 2021. Specifically, the annual tritium disposal policy for the Fukushima nuclear power plant is approximately 22 trillion becquerels. In contrast, the CCP's Red River nuclear power plant had a liquid tritium release of around 90 trillion becquerels. The Taishan nuclear power plant and the Yangjiang nuclear power plant in Guangdong province had liquid tritium releases of about 218 trillion becquerels and 112 trillion becquerels, respectively, while the Ningde nuclear power plant in Fujian province had a liquid tritium release of about 102 trillion becquerels. These efforts have generated significant engagement on the Japanese Embassy China's Weibo account, with the post receiving a substantial number of shares, comments, and likes. On August 22, Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Sun Weidong summoned Japanese Ambassador Hideo Terumi to criticize Japan for releasing treated water from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, accusing Japan of irresponsibly shifting the risk of nuclear wastewater. In response, Ambassador Terumi clarified that Japan discharged ALPS-treated water and urged China to use this terminology. He highlighted Japan's rigorous assessments by the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, and its transparent, science-based explanations to the international community. He further expressed regret that China continued to insist on claims lacking scientific basis. On September 1st, the paper, a Chinese news outlet, published a lengthy article questioning the discharge as a non-scientific event that should not be blamed on science. It asked where the conclusions complying with international standards in the IAEA report came from and asserted that Japan's nuclear power plants were not trustworthy. Chinese state media, including CCTV, distorted facts and misled public opinion, encouraging disassociation from Japanese products. Social media platforms, influenced by the Chinese Communist Party, were flooded with anti-Japanese sentiments, causing many Chinese citizens to be unable to discern the truth, prompting them to boycott Japanese goods. Some even called for severe punishment of the Japanese embassy. However, the clarifications and counter-arguments presented by the Japanese embassy in China have played a significant role in exposing falsehoods and spreading the truth. Think tank, how to assist the Chinese people instead of the CCP regime. In the midst of China's economic crisis, experts from various fields in the United States are also discussing how to learn from the past and truly help the Chinese people, rather than aiding the evil Chinese Communist Party, CCP. They argue that over the past few decades, Americans naively believed that by economically helping the CCP to open up, they would transition to a democratic country, thereby pouring trillions of American capital into the CCP, supporting it to become an enemy of the United States, allowing the CCP to monitor the Chinese people with advanced technology, and causing the human rights situation in China to deteriorate to the point where it has become a country notorious for organ harvesting. So, how can American politicians, companies, and individuals effectively help the Chinese people instead of the CCP? Regarding this matter, Kevin Freeman, the director of the National Security Investment Consultants Institute, NSIC, made recommendations during a seminar organized by the think tank China Current Danger Committee titled No Longer Funding the Deadliest Enemy, suggesting that if Americans follow these 10 steps, they can help overthrow the CCP and thereby grant freedom to the Chinese people, and demonstrate to the world that the exceptional Chinese people, once liberated from the CCP's constraints, can make significant contributions to the future of the world and all of us. Here are the 10 suggestions. First, stop investing in companies controlled by the CCP. Mr. Freeman said that Americans have already invested trillions of dollars in the CCP because we thought of it as a free market investment, we viewed it as market, while our enemies viewed it as a battleground. The CCP controls any investment within China or connected to China. Next, from a professional investment perspective, Freeman recommended thoroughly checking your investment partners and avoiding capital management companies that index for CCP interests. The third point is to listen to the voice of American industry and ensure the use of American or allied products. The fourth point is to strengthen the American economy by strengthening the American currency. The fifth point is to investigate collusion between other American politicians and the CCP, just as carefully as the investigation into the Trump-Russia affair. The sixth point is to close the borders to prevent CCP personnel from entering the United States. The seventh point is to continue the sanctions and tariffs measures implemented during the Trump era. The eighth point is to demand compensation from the CCP for the damage it caused to the United States through the spread of the novel coronavirus. The ninth point is to demand that the CCP repay its debts to the United States. The 10th point is for people to expose all the atrocities committed by the Communist Party to the world. Dr. Bradley Thayer, a strategic expert and director of the China Department at the Center for Security Policy, highlighted during the seminar that the fundamental principle for modern nation-states has been not aiding the rise of one's adversary. Regrettably, the United States has deviated from this principle since the end of the Cold War, with strategists giving way to financiers who prioritize profits from investments in China. In contrast, the CCP follows a clear strategy focused on preserving its rule, as seen in its actions after the 1989 Tiananmen Square incident when it avoided assistance from the United States and the international community to protect its legitimacy. Meanwhile, former chairman of the National Policy Committee and former CEO of United Capital, William Walton, also mentioned that in 1989, Americans fell for the CCP's deception, genuinely believing that the CCP was shifting toward a market economy. They granted China most favored nation treatment and eventually allowed China to enter the World Trade Organization in 2001. During that time, the American business community in Wall Street, while making billions of dollars from China, completely abandoned a critical negotiating chip they had when conducting annual reviews of China's trade status, strategic leverage. Many American businessmen, who thought they were profiting from China, were actually misled. The CCP's objective is to have you transfer technology and assist their ecosystem in gaining more business. After a while, you'll realize that you're no longer useful. By then, you'll discover that you're facing a Chinese CCP competitor who not only dominates the entire market in China but also threatens your market in the United States. Walton noted that the end result was that the U.S.-China trade surplus grew from $8 billion in 2001 to $340 billion in 2021, totaling more than $5.4 trillion, with China's exports surpassing U.S. imports. China's economy grew fivefold, becoming the world's second-largest economy capable of competing with the United States. Dr. Thayer stated that the CCP not only exhibits blatant aggression on the international stage but also seriously violates the human rights of all Chinese people domestically. He advocated for the current U.S. strategy, which is to starve the CCP. Thayer stressed, the CCP's surveillance state and its oppressive social credit system are key to their control. To counter this, we must follow strategic advice, cutting off CCP funding for technology transfer and economic exchanges. Starving the CCP and helping the Chinese people break free is crucial. Essentially, the CCP is fragile, and pressuring it is necessary to discuss liberation while addressing U.S. national security concerns in the 21st century. Don't forget to comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.